Oh, I'm happy to welcome you in our class, and today I will talk about how digital technologies are changing GxP environment. And if you're not familiar with this term, I will explain you later what it is about. Uh, I'm particularly interested in this area because my background is in pharmaceuticals, and for a huge amount of time, I was working with pharmaceutical companies, and they are regulated with these standards. They called good manufacturing practice, good clinical practice, good laboratory practice, and so on and so on. So, in pharmaceutical industry, we have good practices almost for everything, and if we are talking about digital transformation in this area, we should consider how we will fulfill these requirements and standards, and how make it possible to preserve all the controls in place, and how we can guarantee the quality of our products, and at the same time introduce more efficient and superb tools to improve our industry. So, first of all, I need to say that we are talking about digital transformation in almost all industries, and in many cases, so when pharmaceutical industry is being mentioned, everything besides drug development, I mean new drug discovery, is being obsolete in terms of digital technologies, and in many cases there are a huge amount of processes running on paper or in some old school, old style computerized systems or something like that. So why this is happening? First of all, we have, as I already told you, good practices. It's a system of standards, and they are aimed to ensure quality of pharmaceutical products. And why it's important. In many cases, our health, lives, well-being, and so on will depend on quality of medicines which we're taking. So it's quite important that we will use highest quality products. Yeah. And when we're talking about digital transformation in this area, we're aiming in increasing process efficiency, reducing risks, improving product quality, and we need to do so. We need to understand all the requirements behind this GxP standard because we should be strictly inside these requirements. So, if we are talking about pharmaceutical quality system as something general, we need to mention that it's aimed on different stages of pharmaceutical product life cycle. So, it will cover development, planning, implementation, maintenance, improvement, and these all are parts of pharmaceutical quality management system. So this system covers everything inside pharmaceutical company. And one of the major parts of the system is knowledge management. So we need to understand information behind our processes and products and our personnel and what we are doing. And for, I mean, literally every procedure will have instruction and documentation, and it will be with a certain rules to be followed while we're running it. And uh, these requirements are described in good manufacturing practices, for example, in accordance with the processes on the manufacturing facilities. If we are talking about different type of facilities like laboratories or clinical environment, we will have similar standards, which will be called good clinical practice, good laboratory practice, and so on. So, another very important part of pharmaceutical quality system will be related to supply management. Why it's important? The quality of our product will totally depend on what are components which we're using, and the other side will be, of course, equipment and personnel. So we start with components, and to be able to provide 100% assurance that our product will be something of high quality, we need to be sure that these components will be produced and delivered and stored in accordance with all the requirements which are listed in specifications provided with these components. And after that, we will need to manage all the processes which will utilize these products. So each place where we are using some kind of substance, it could be some phases of packaging, or it could be some chemical reactions, or it could be manufacturing of mm, um, the body of pharmaceutical product, or we need to have monitoring controls. We need to establish certain rules how these processes are being run. And why I'm mentioning all this in my course related to digital transformation. I guess it's quite clear that when we're analyzing the substances on paper, it's easy to just uncheck something and miss something important. And when we're talking about monitoring and control system, it's totally different things and totally different approaches when we have automated solutions which provide monitoring data and store it in secured space and analyze it automatically. And on the other hand, we could have something being treated manually when there is a person who could be in a bad mood, or I don't know, tired or depressed or distracted by something, and results could be quite not what we're going to call something with a certain level of quality product. So, if we have some problems in our processes or substances or personnel, we will record a deviation. It will be a record when something is not as it was planned it's not as it was recorded in the instructions. So of course it's quite understandable that if we will use a digital system, it will be easier to find these deviations, and actually it could be automated, and the system will pop up with a notification that something is going not by the instruction and not by the rules. So it is a deviation. Please make this recording in your checklist. And in digital format, it's much harder to avoid these notifications. And all this will provide us with generalized control over all the process and all the pharmaceutical production environment. And we are able to control intermediate products, and we're able to control them on different stages and different processes, and we are able to provide our validation in these places. So we will test these points of interest to understand that overall production line is working just as we expected. And after all this data will promote continuous improvement through implementation of uh, updates in current process, and we will get additional knowledge, so we will be able to make our production line better. I'm providing examples from production line because it's quite understandable, and I guess it could be related to other types of regulated environments with GxP standards. It's quite similar there. So another important part will be uh, to understand if we need to change something in our system or how our product will be affected. So it's a severe process called change management, and if we are going to change anything in GxP environment, we need to be sure that we understand all affected components, all processes, all products which will be affected, and we need to be sure that these changes will not reduce quality or our understanding of the performance, so we will be able to control overall results in this process. And in the if we have some this change management could be iterative, we are able to provide a certain idea that should be changed, analyze it in digital environment. It could be called digital twin. If we have a digital twin of our system, we can try and test this change before we will start implementing in real life. It's quite important because it's not always possible to stop production line to implement certain changes, and if something will go wrong, we will need to update it one more time, and as a result, we will have severe losses in our capability to produce our product. Also, there are minor processes called investigations. They are inside each of the stages when we're implementing a change, when we have a deviation, or when we need to analyze something, we will need to proceed with investigation. And in many cases, these investigations are based on risk management. And right now, risk management is a very important process in pharmaceutical industry, and it totally could be also automated with digital solutions. If you are familiar with risk management, in many cases, it's related to understanding how often certain event happening, how it affecting our process, and what could be done to reduce these effects and make this happen less often. And in general, it's not always possible to take care about certain risk for 100%. So we're talking about risk mitigation. So we will make it less probable to happen. And in the same process of risk management, we have to develop our strategy, how we will proceed if this situation will happen. And digital tool behind this risk management is also quite useful because we'll be able to connect our processes, equipment, personnel, and so on to a certain products, of course, and to a certain event. And we are able to make these recordings of events happening automatically if we have a generalized system covering all the parts of pharmaceutical quality management system. And when we have all the information, we're able to analyze so-called root causes of these risks and deviations. And it's very important because our mm, goal is not to deal with results of something happening, but to try to introduce some tools to be able to reduce this root cause of certain deviation. For example, it could be human errors or some problems with process description, and as a result, we will need to provide corrective or preventive actions which will reduce these risks, chances of this risk to happen, and it will be our mitigation. And after that, we will have to analyze if our changes and corrections were effective. It's also very important, and after each such action, we'll need to proceed with effectiveness analysis. And I hope that you understand that medical products couldn't be released into public market until this product was authorized by a qualified person. And it could be possible only if this person have all the required information about this product. And in pharmaceutical environment, it called batch records, and they will contain all the data about substances, equipment used, persons who were involved, laboratory results provided from intermediate stages and from resulting product, and only if all this data is correct, we're able to release our product. And in this point, we are able to have the biggest impact from our digital tools. They will automatically analyze all this data from previous stages and provide all the necessary data for this person to make a decision, which become much more easier, and this person could rely on these systems if they are working correctly. Another important part will be audits, which are being run inside this environment quite often, and we have internal and external audit, and we need to analyze by ourselves with internal audits if everything is going right, and after that, in a certain time, external body will provide the experts to control if we are working correctly. And in this audit management solution, we're able to record all the required schedules, all changes, corrective actions, and so on and so on. So if something is going not with accordance with the requirements and standards, we're able to provide required updates in a meaningful time frame. So, if we are talking about digital transformation, there are several requirements how it could be done and when. And in many cases, we have so-called triggers for digital transformations. They are related to volume of production. If we need to produce more product, it will be easier to scale up with digital solution because otherwise we'll have to hire expensive labor and it could be quite challenging in a short period of time. And it's much easier to scale up digital solution. We could utilize legacy systems which are outdated, and it's a good idea to update them to run on modern technologies. It could improve safety, efficiency. There could be external regulations require certain functionality introduced in the systems, and so on. There could be mm, ideas about competitive advantage when you understand that your competitors are going full throttle into digital technologies and they're updating everything and they will work much more effective in a short time. And if you will not you will not be able to do the same, you will be it will be harder for you to compete with them. So, of course, there are different ways to proceed with this digital transformation. And for example, we can go with application of artificial intelligence. It would be a first idea right now because this technology is booming and we'll try to do something. And it's interesting to understand where this technology could be implemented in this environment. Defect prediction machine learning will help us to predict defects in our equipment and it will reduce number of breakdowns in the process of work and as a result we will have a lesser number of defective batches of our product. We can optimize manufacturing process. For example, we can analyze mm, all checkpoints in our process and we are able to minimize waste and minimize our time frame, how long this process is being into action. And all this related to data analysis, we need first of all to acquire as much data as possible to identify the dependencies and optimize processes. And my favorite part is document automation. AI systems right now are able to work with huge documents. They are able to extract data from them, to summarize, and to generate new documents. This technology is called natural language processing, and right now most important technology in this space is large language models like ChatGPT. And this technology, of course, could be also implemented in our environment. Besides, it's being strictly regulated. It's also possible. So, how digitalization will improve our quality, overall quality of our products? In many cases, our processes are related with human errors, and automation will be able to reduce these errors. In many cases, it's impossible to gather real-time data from these production lines and other processes without digital tools. And digital technologies are able to help us to provide dashboards with all the data from different sensors and the different devices in our process. And having this data in place, we will be able to provide continuous monitoring and we'll be able to react in no time. And we don't have to wait when something will break down or some disaster will happen. We'll be able to change it in no time, just before this will occur. Of course, there could be disadvantages in this process. Of course, we will require to have our costs. Our digital tools are in many cases expensive to develop because in regulated environment we are not able to develop something by our own without any testing, that just hire a programmer and write a script. It's impossible to do it like that. We need to have our quality assurance team. We need to have all the process of software coding described in procedures, and we need analytics to be sure that this software will work with 100% accordance with regulations and requirements from our process and our products. Also, there is a chance of cyber attacks, and if we have everything on paper, there is no such a problem. But when we have everything in digital form, there will be risks of cyber crimes, and we need to provide all the necessary ways to protect ourselves and our solutions from these attacks. And for example, it will require additional testing and backupping and mirroring of data and so on and so on. If we're talking about general environment, GxP environment as a general, it's a good idea to connect different systems between each other, because when we're transmitting data manually from one system to another, there is a huge chance to have errors, because uh, it will involve human actions, and they are not 100% stable. And actually, chances of errors when someone just copying data from one form to another, or printing or typing it from paper document, is about 10%, and it's a very high percentage. So in pharmaceutical environment, in many cases, in such a situation, we need to have two persons. One person will type information in system, and another one will control if everything is correct, and it's very expensive. So it's a good idea to integrate different systems between each other, so we will not have any printouts to be moved to another department to be entered in another system. And here we could have a problem when we need to interconnect old and new systems. And during time, standards of systems interoperability were significantly changed. And right now we are all about APIs and so on. And in later times, it was something like we put document on a FTP server or in a folder on a drive or something like that. And could be quite challenging to provide middleware which will be able to transmit data from one system to another. And of course, we will need to validate all these transmissions of data, because validation is general requirement in our environment. So we need to provide validations for all our systems. I will not pay much attention into standards themselves. I will just list them on this slide. You will need to understand their MHRA requirements, WHO requirements, EMA requirements, FDA requirements. There's additional organization called PCAS, which organize all the regulators in this environment, and they provide their own regulations, and it's quite challenging to understand all the documents and what is behind them. I guess for digital system, one of the most important regulations will be provided in 21 CFR Part 11. It's called Electronic Records and Electronic Signatures. This document is being mentioned almost in every standard, and each system which is able to work in accordance with GxP standards will run under these requirements. And of course, I need to mention GAMP 5. It's a good automated manufacturing practice, and it's version 5. Now we have a second edition of this standard, and it's also very important to validate our computerized systems. And right now, we're in the process of changes in requirements in the standards. Right now, we're able to analyze risks and validate changes only if our risk analysis showed that a certain area will be affected by a certain change. Before that, we had to analyze the whole system, after each update. And also, I need to mention Alcoa principle, which will require that our data is complete, consistent, resilient, and it's accessible through the life cycle. And the Alcoa terms a variation of attributable, legible, current, original, and accurate data. And in addition to that, we have completeness, consistency, endurance, and availability. Would be a different talk about these requirements. It's quite long, so I will not spend a lot of time there. When we're talking about integration of different products in one circuit, we'll need to think about automated reporting, which will provide integration of various systems, and it's allow us to process and create reports to minimize human errors. Also, we'll be able to reduce time costs and increase data consistency. So, also, there is a certain term called audit trail. It's our ability to track all changes, and in the systems which are being run in GxP environment, we need to have each change of data in such a system will require us to record data, why this change was made, who made the change, when, and what data was there before this change. So it's a journal where we record all the information. And if we're running multiple systems, there could be necessity to record data from multiple systems in one audit trail. It could be done with certain techniques of data exchange or utilizing cryptographic technology. In the process of digital tool implementation, we will have to analyze risks on different phases of the process. And at the initial stage, our understanding of risks behind this process will be quite different from our understanding in the middle or in the end of the project. Why it's important to analyze this risk in the end of the project? We understand that all what could happen already happened, and all the requirements from our side were already made because we were able to finalize this project. It's important because we will need this data in the next project when we will be able to analyze our initial risks based on the risks from resulted projects. There could be a certain number of mistakes here. It could be unrealistic expectations regarding time and budget of our project. It could be neglected security, underestimating the importance of data and data leaks, system failures, and so on. There could be problems engaging required stakeholders. It's most common problem when we're not able to communicate with persons who will be affected by a certain tool. And of course, we need to understand how this product, this technology will change their work and how they will be affected. Also, it's quite important to understand if we are running software product in GxP environment, we need to validate infrastructure where it's running. And in many cases, it's quite easy right now utilizing cloud solutions because in this case, clouds will take care about all the basic things like is it possible to reach this server or is this data isolated from other servers? It's actually not that simple. It's quite complicated, but I guess I mean that it's basic requirements which are not different from one industry to another. They're quite general. And data protection, cybersecurity, and these requirements in GxP environment will be quite similar with requirements in financial environment, for example. When we are introducing a certain system, we will have to analyze should we validate this solution or not. And in pharmaceutical environment, in many cases, almost everything will went under validation. ERP systems, manufacturing management system, warehouse management, automation systems on the process of production, waiting, learning, calibration, packaging, quality control, archiving, mixing, so on and so on. And everything is being controlled, and it's understandable why. And if we talk about how to validate such a complex systems, now we have GAMP 5 second edition, and this regulation allow us to utilize agile approaches here. So we are able to implement iterative changes and analyze only parts of our product which will be affected by this change. And it's much better in comparison with linear approach when we had to analyze everything. So also, it's quite important that during these validation stages, we should improve our knowledge about this product. And it's one of the things stated in these regulations. And another thing to mention is that validation should be more related to expert work rather than just checking the box that everything is fine. So we should go deeper into this product, into this software product, and analyze if it's working correctly, analyze corner cases, and this will be much more efficient than just basic testing. So another statement to mention that right now we're in a situation when most of the information will never exist on the paper. So all new equipment is going with digital systems, and we are going into digital environment just as it is being built in our solutions. So it's a bad idea to print data from these systems and analyze them later with other systems. It's better to interconnect the systems into common environment. And it's always will be important to understand how different technologies work. For example, there was a huge hype around blockchain, and it was covered with financial part of this solution and technology, but in general, it's just a ledger, and it could be utilized in pharmaceutical system just perfectly to record data in audit trail. So it could be used in these solutions. If we're looking at the pipeline, how these products are being implemented, we're talking about several stages. First of all, we need to gather all the requirements. They're being gathered based on product knowledge, process knowledge, regulatory requirements, and uh, requirements provided by the company. After that, all these combined specifications will be our baseline in designing our solution. When we have our tool, we will be able to test it and analyze if it works with accordance with the specifications. And this process is being called validation, and the stages of it will be verification of correctness of work. If we have any problems in this process, we will be able to implement certain changes and to make it to run in accordance with all requirements. To understand how to start digital transformation, we need to analyze current processes and identify areas where it will be most important, because we're unable to automate all the processes in our system. We need to choose where to start. So it's a good idea to start with where it will be most benefit to our company. After that, we'll need to identify required technologies, because there are different ways how same thing could be done, and to utilize best tools is very important. And after that, I recommend to develop a strategy how we will proceed with these changes and transformation, because we need to analyze all initiatives, make the priorities, and understand what are the resulting factors behind each initiative, and do we have required resources to proceed with these initiatives. And preparing this strategy will allow us to create rules and global understanding in the company, that we have a certain dedicated team which will work with all the requirements from different departments. They will go one part of the company to another. They will find required tools to automate their process, and they will interconnect this process from one department with other and with the next one. And following the strategy allow you to understand, do you have enough skills, resources, time to make the changes in a manner when you will be uh, getting benefits from them and not only expenses. I already told about validation in cloud solutions. I guess it could be quite beneficial, because we could generally reduce our burden to do all these things ourselves. So, to sum up, I need to say that the digitalization in GxP environment allow to improve quality and efficiency of pharmaceutical processes. It's important to understand when and how to start digitalization. And also it's important to understand all the risks behind this process and understand how to mitigate these risks. And it's also important to know that this process was already done by multiple companies, and if you will find experts on the market who were involved in this process before, you will be able to avoid these risks, and you will be able to start with a huge much higher starting position, and it will be much easier for you, and it will require much less resources. In many cases, it's better to proceed with a consulting company because even you will find one expert on the market, so it's possible that his individual experience will be not enough to understand all the process which you are running in your facilities. And when you are working with consultancy, they are able to provide their own expertise, and also in many cases they are asking external experts to contribute in this process, and if they are needed to proceed on certain terms, it will be much more effective and beneficial for you. So I guess it's all. Thank you for your time.